welcome to our Talking Grief podcast. I'm your host, Rainbow Tomes, and every episode we'll explore how grief touches our lives at home, at work and beyond. And today's guest, we have Erica Farmer, Business Director and co-founder of Quantum Rise Talent Group, and we're going to be talking about pet loss and the impact on people and workplaces. And we also have Daisy with us today. Yeah.
Yes, we do, don't we? Absolutely.
So welcome both of you. So what brings you to this conversation today?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. It's all very exciting, and I know Daisy's very grateful as well. I guess someone who has had pugs for the last 14 years and pets of some kind, you know, they bring so much joy to our life. But unfortunately, there's always that time where it comes to the end, and I don't think dealing with the loss of a pet and that kind of relationship's ever really taken that seriously. I know for people who don't really have that relationship with pets or animals, there's often the view of, oh, well, it's just a dog or just a cat or just a fish or whatever it might be. But actually, when you're in that kind of relationship with an animal, when you've got that unconditional love, particularly with, you know, something like a dog that just loves the ground that you walk on and you have such an amazing relationship with, unfortunately, when it comes to the end of their life, it's not always taken that seriously, either by, you know, someone who's not particularly that patient or interested, such as a boss that doesn't have that relationship. Or actually the resources and ability to support you through that kind of grief as well. So I've unfortunately been through it kind of 4 times now, including a cat. And yeah, it's probably something that you never quite get over, really.
No, and I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions about grief and loss, is this kind of that there is a timeline, and it's like people are being measured by that. Are you over this yet? Are you over it? Whereas, you know, it's that kind of living with that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So 4 times.
Yeah. 3 pugs and a cat.
Blimey.
Unfortunately, these kind of dogs aren't the most resilient of dogs in terms of lifespan. They have multiple health problems, which, you know, range from kind of breathing and spinal problems, because just the way we breed kind of these kind of toy dogs. And actually, when I lost my last pug, Pepper, I learned, and she unfortunately had to go to sleep because she had cognitive canine disorder, which is doggy dementia. Actually, I learned there that 1/3 of dogs over the age of 9 end up having doggy dementia as well. And it's all these things that you don't really learn until you're right in the middle of it. And I suppose you could say the same with any kind of grief, really. But you end up becoming a bit of an expert in regards to your dog's health conditions or your cat's health conditions. And particularly something like dementia, similar to humans, it goes for quite a long time before you get to the point where obviously you can make the decision with pets, which you can't with humans at the moment. But that's quite difficult, and you have that anticipatory grief that you know something's coming with pets as well. So, because you make the decision for that final end. So that's different slightly.
So you mentioned that there is a lack of support. What kind of things had been said to you at that time? So you had this news around like doggy dementia. You know, what support did you get? What was said to you?
I was lucky that I've got an amazing vet, a lady called Molly in Clumpton, where I live in Devon, who is probably the most knowledgeable and empathetic vet going. And, you know, it was a long period with Pepper, my previous pug. And we saw, unfortunately, Pep go downhill over that time. Molly was amazing by seeing what other drugs were on the market, doing her research, going to seminars, and, you know, also like what I needed to do to look after this one, Daisy, that I also had, because Daisy was also going through change and loss with that. I've been very lucky with all the vets that I've had, actually. They've all been very caring and done everything they can, to the point when they say, now's the time that we need to consider you know, what moving on looks like. Where I haven't had the support, and I think where a lot of people probably struggle with, is in the workplace.
Yeah.
So when I lost my first pug, Thor, it was almost like I was making a fuss because I was coming to work emotionally. Again, he had encephalitis, so it took a wee while for us to make the decision for him, and he was very young. So again, kind of learning about the condition that he had and the fact it was a terminal condition, and sharing that with my boss at work, who didn't really seem to care at all of the kind of emotional journey I was going through and how it affected my work. It was almost kind of transactional, like you can have the rest of the day off to go and spend with Thor, but you need to be in the office tomorrow.
Wow.
And I was like, well, this isn't going to go away tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, well, you need to be at work, so it doesn't matter what's going on in your private life.
Wow.
And I think that's very dependent on the type of manager and employer that you also have, right?
So it doesn't sound like work asked you, what do you need during this time? You were told what to do.
There was an assumption, because it was a dog. So I guess if it was a parent or a close relative or a child, I would have had some kind of parental leave or bereavement leave or something like that, which I didn't have, because obviously that's unfortunately not recognised currently with pets. And the other thing was, I guess, like the lack of empathy for people who aren't close to their pets. They just really struggle to identify why you're behaving the way you are.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to behave differently, right? Grief is different for different people, different time spans, different emotional reactions, different ways of dealing with it. And also kind of looking after the pets that you've still got, even though you're moving a pet through a process that's affecting you deeply and emotionally as well. So, yeah, I think like anything, it comes down to the quality of the manager. Luckily, I work for myself now,
Yes.
and I have a very supportive business partner, so that challenge isn't there for me, and it wasn't there for me with Pepper. But, yeah, previous kind of losses, pet losses, have been made a lot harder because the manager just hasn't recognised or asked the support that's needed.
Yeah, thank you.
And it looks like she's kind of wiggling her way away, trying to get comfy, aren't you? Are you trying to get on camera?
So it sounds like what really made a difference was empathy.
Yes.
And when you said about the vets, that they researched, that they wanted to know more.
Yeah.
And so I guess these are some takeaways, some sort of ideas around like having that empathy, and whether it's a dog or a person, it's, you know, that relationship, respecting that relationship. Is there anything else that would have supported you, and you know, through those difficult times?
Yeah, I think having Daisy helped me with Pep, even though she went through her own anxiety because she'd lost her older sister, her pack leader, effectively. My attention had to focus to her to make sure she was okay, and we kind of got each other through it. I think just kind of going through the emotional cycle of it being final and making a final decision when that happens, when you do decide to put a pet to sleep. And you go through the whole range of, was it the right thing to do? Because it's your choice again, which is obviously different to the human interaction. Did I do it too early? Could I have done something differently? Should I have done it before? You know, was it still quality of life for her? How do I feel about that? And I remember it happening. And I remember saying to Pepper when she'd gone to sleep, I'm so sorry. God, I'm going to get upset now.
Yeah.
And I remember Molly saying to me, because it was at the house when she did it, don't apologise, you've done the right thing by Pepper.
Yeah.
And just kind of dealing with your emotions in the moment as well, because it's a massive responsibility.
Such a big decision.
Oh, it's so difficult. So kind of feeling those feelings and being okay and not giving yourself a hard time as well.
Yeah.
That was really tough.
Really difficult.
I know, wasn't it? It was. So having her really helped as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that reassurance from Molly around,
Yeah.
you know, that support as well.
Yeah, it was the right thing. I mean, obviously Molly wouldn't have put Pepper to sleep if it wasn't the right thing. So the vet has to kind of almost agree with you that it's the right time. And I was very lucky that we did it in my house, and Molly came to the house, and so Pep was in her own environment and didn't really know what was happening and things like that. It's harder for you because you know what's happening, whereas with the pet, they're just going to sleep. So, but she didn't really know. 1 minute Pep was there and then Pep wasn't there, and she didn't understand what was happening.
Gosh, so you're processing your own grief. You've had to make this huge decision, and then you're also looking after Daisy and trying to... There's so much going on.
Yeah, and she went through massive anxiety, because there was suddenly a massive loss in her life, and they obviously can't process and understand what's happened. So it was difficult for her because she was looking for Pepper. She'd always follow Pepper around, and now Pepper wasn't there for her to follow around. So she almost had to relearn when to feed and when to toilet and when to do this and when to do that. And we had to kind of form a new relationship with each other, because of that as well. So are you trying to get comfy again? So it's multifaceted, but I was lucky at that point that, I didn't have to try and manage a manager who wasn't empathetic, because I don't know if I could have dealt. Because you have... People say, particularly with dogs and animals, you have all these pets and animals, but there's normally the one, right? There's the one dog that's really the dog. And I'll close Daisy's ears for this. Pepper was that dog.
Yeah.
So losing Pep probably was the hardest one out of all of them, really. So there's almost that with it as well. That finality of she's not going to be there any longer. That's what I found quite difficult. So...
Yeah. And so that relationship that you had must have been so special.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
There was something about Pepper that she was so bright and positive and happy. And we used to have a pug meet where, the pug owners used to bring the pugs and they used to play together and all the rest of it. Pepper was always the one who would go and meet the new pugs and almost show the new pugs the ropes and things like that.
A bit of a mentor.
She was absolutely. She was so loving and so kind and caring and gorgeous. And I guess that was quite difficult with the dementia at the end, because that started to change her personality as well. And she was no longer... I guess like people... You struggle they change, and you struggle to recognise their own traits and personality because what's happening. So that was quite tricky to manage as well. But, like anything, you remember the good times. I've got amazing videos and photos and memories of her, introducing Daisy to her and her looking after Daisy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So...
And what helps you today? Because, like we said, this isn't a, done thing. This is something that we live with for the rest of our lives. So what helps you both now?
Having each other.
Yeah.
For sure. I think just having some amazing memories of pug meet and videos and photos. And I can still remember how her fur felt, and her little velvet ears that they have and things like that. I can still remember that with Pepper. And her bright, breezy face and her big smile and all that kind of stuff. And I guess you just kind of, over time, it becomes easier. But, you're always slightly changed because of it, I think, aren't you? One way or another. Yeah. But Madam here helps. She's a good distraction, as you can see.
Yeah, definitely. And so cute.
Big eyes.
Yeah. So if you could speak to every business leader, what would you like to say about supporting grief at work? Whether that's pet loss, it's a relationship, isn't it? What would you say?
Ultimately, we're people first. And I think businesses tend to forget that sometimes. And I remember my time in corporate, and I was guilty for this. In the moment, everything else seems more important. Deadlines and what your manager needs from you, and stakeholders and decks and reports and projects and this, that and the other. But it's all irrelevant at the end of the day when you're going through something like a loss. It doesn't matter. And I think that needs to be recognised, whether it's pets or a child or a parent or anyone else, a friend. Ultimately, we're all going to deal with it at some point. And what we now see, so obviously I do a lot of work in the AI space, is people turning to artificial intelligence to call, what we call trauma dump into it, because, it feels like a safe place, and they might not be able to access a conversation with an empathetic manager.
Well, right. So where are you going to go?
Yeah.
If your workplace doesn't understand pet loss, your colleagues, where are you going to go? It makes sense to go to AI.
Yeah. And, if you can access a counsellor or a grievance specialist or, a good vet to talk to or whoever else, then amazing. But not everybody can. And these things cost money, especially if you don't have any kind of assistance program. So you can see why people do turn to AI. It can feel like another human talking to you and responding to you. And I think people get that confused. And I actually advocate for using AI when you've got a bit of anxiety, you need a little bit of a lift, you need some breathing exercises, you need some resources, you need to practice that difficult conversation.
Right.
You need a bit of role play in a safe environment that you're not going to feel judged. It's great for those kind of things.
Can I just check this email, the tone of my email, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit, worried about the presentation that I've got tomorrow. Can I just practice something with you? Can I start to feel a little bit het up about something? Give me some box breathing exercises or something great, that in the moment nudge that you need at that point. But when the days are feeling less good, when things are feeling a bit darker, when you don't know where to go or who to turn to, or you do feel rejected by a manager or whatever it might be, that's when you need to go and speak to somebody and get that human help, not trauma dump into something like artificial intelligence that doesn't have the safeguards around it to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Whereas a human is more likely to support you with
that. And
I
guess one of the other challenges, and AI has really helped me, especially as a neurodivergent person, but I guess it's not contained. So, I have definitely had times where I've spent a lot of time, whereas when you're working with a therapist, that is contained. We're going to work on this for a set period of time every week. And I guess what you could do is just spend so much time in that. And then not be able to have space to do other things. So having that containment is going to be...
That's important, right?
Yeah.
And also recognising that you still need to do that objectivity, that critical thinking, that sift out what the AI is actually saying to you, because it's still pulling from multiple sources that might be accurate and might not be accurate. Whereas obviously with a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counsellor or a therapist, they are specifically trained in that ability, as well as the empathy and the reading between the lines and the body language and the probing on the thing that the person might not quite want to talk about, but they need to.
Safety check there as well, because so for example, our therapist team have supervision, so there's that kind of safety check. Are we supporting this person in the right way?
Yeah. Whereas AI is not going to do that.
So you have shared so many insightful things today. If there's one thing for people to take away from listening to our conversation, what would you like that to be?
Just validate how that person's feeling, I guess. We're very good sometimes at either being wrapped up in our own stuff or being too busy or not seeing it or hearing it. But actually, if I think back to that situation with that manager that I struggled with, a little bit of validation from her would have gone a huge way in terms of my feelings and what I was dealing with and my trauma, and even what she was more interested in was me doing my work. Actually, that could have actually helped that as well. And people deal with that in different ways, and we're all different, and we are people first. And as you know, probably more than anyone, we are so complicated as individuals that it's not a one size fits all. So like you said before, asking the question, what support
do you need? It's such a simple thing, isn't it? But it can make such a difference to how someone's feeling and how they show up to work.
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for coming along today. So grateful. So if this episode has resonated with you, Please subscribe to our Talking Grief podcast and share it with anyone that you feel might find it helpful. If you need support or resources on grief in the workplace, visit our website at www.thegriefTherapist.co.uk. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.